tonight on the Barbara Walters Special.
You know, I'll tell you what, I have a feeling that I've been in a slump since I left Saturday Night Live, and that I'm going to come out of it.
But I mean, a lot of women, of course, when I went out with them, said, you know, I just want to make sure you understand that I don't like it just for your body. I mean, I love your brain. I say, yeah, sure, that's a good one.
And so much is written about me that is completely untrue that I just figured, well, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I ought to get out there and talk a little bit. So here I am.
Good evening, and welcome to our Academy Award Night special. Although most of the excitement is in Los Angeles tonight, those of us who live in New York can get a taste of L.A. here at the glamorous Winter Garden of the World Financial Center. I'm surrounded by real California palm trees, a fitting environment to introduce three of Hollywood's biggest box office stars. Chevy Chase. His Christmas movie last year was a smash. But when he left Saturday Night Live 15 years ago, the critics said his best years were behind him. While tonight, you'll meet a happy man. You'll also meet his family and learn that there's more to Chevy Chase than boyish pranks and pratfalls. A lot more. Arnold Schwarzenegger. When he came to this country, they told him he had a funny name, a funny body, and a funny accent. You want to be a star, they said? No chance. No? Well, tonight we'll talk with the star about how he turned it all around, about his wife, TV journalist Maria Shriver, and about his baby. And Warren Beatty. I don't know what to tell you except that we waited a long time for this one. The star of the upcoming film, Dick Tracy, finally talks. Does he talk about his sister, Shirley MacLaine? Yes. Does he talk about Madonna? Yes. Does he talk about marriage? Yes. Does he talk about why he never talks? Yes. Chevy Chase, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and at last, Warren Beatty. Stay with us.
The Barbara Walters.
What's wrong with expressing our patriotism? I'm proud to diaper my baby with a...
The year was 1975, the first season of an experimental comedy show called Saturday Night Live. An unknown comedian with a funny name proved in a few short weeks to be the most refreshing thing on television. He played a full-grown man acting like a 12-year-old. America loved it, and people remembered his name.
Good evening, I'm Chevy Chase, and you're not.
Maybe it was the way he delivered the news.
Generalissimo Francisco Franco is still dead.
Maybe it was the way he impersonated Gerald Ford.
Uh-oh, whoops. No, it's no problem.
Maybe it was simply the way he fell.
I've got it. No problem.
Whatever the case, Chevy Chase went in 1 year from being an unknown comedy writer to being a star.
Live from New York, it's Saturday Night!
He was born Cornelius Crane Chase and grew up in Manhattan. He calls his father, Edward, the funniest man he ever met. He was in publishing. His mother, Kathleen, who also had a sense of humor, was part of the wealthy Crane plumbing family. Unfortunately, the money didn't come to Chevy. When he and his older brother, Ned, were still quite young, their parents divorced. Unlike most comedians, Chevy was neither the class clown nor the classic problem student. He graduated valedictorian of his prep school. He was not, however, terribly focused in terms of a career. He dabbled in rock and roll, even cut an album. But he didn't begin to make it until he linked up with a comedy group called Channel One and made a cult movie called The Groove Tube.
I'm looking over a four-leaf clover that I overlooked before.
After his big year on Saturday Night Live, he began a movie career, landing his first starring role in Foul Play with Goldie Hawn.
Excuse me. My fault, very much my fault.
Although he has said that he hated his performance, the film was a huge hit and seemed to prove that leaving Saturday Night Live was the right thing to do. Chevy, it seems, could do no wrong. Then he starred in a succession of flops, and there was a failed marriage, his second. reports of drug abuse, a career gone sour.
Marty Moose, Marty Moose, Marty Moose. Yuck! That's me.
Then in 1983, Chevy got the role of Clark Griswold in National Lampoon's Vacation, a spoof on the typical family cross-country trip, a sort of Father Knows Best meets The Twilight Zone. It was a huge hit.
First, I didn't want to take this vacation. But now I'm glad I did. It's given me a chance to spend a lot more time with you and,
Audrey.
Audrey.
And in the smash movie Fletch, Chevy got to play a man with brains for a change. He got the girl and got the chance to improvise a merry masquerade of offbeat characters. And steadily. He's even made his peace with President Ford.
I just want to thank you for having me here, and I'm kind of embarrassed, and I hope you pardon me.
Here goes nothing.
This past Christmas, when the studios were unleashing their heavy hitters, the surprise box office champ was the third installment of the vacation movies, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Personally, it's been no vacation getting here. But the saving grace seems to be this lady, Chevy's third wife. He met Janie Luke when she was working as a production coordinator on Under the Rainbow.
He flirted with me and pursued me, but I didn't take it seriously. Then one day I made a rather flip remark to him, and I looked and saw that he was hurt by it. And I looked in those brown eyes and I said,
It wasn't all an act.
I think there's a nice guy there. And there is.
They married in the spring of '82 and now have 3 beautiful and spirited daughters, aged 7, 5, and 2. Their Los Angeles home is built around the kids. They have birds, rabbits, and a backyard built for family activities. Only the living room has the feel of a celebrity's home, but Chevy says that's because they don't use it very much. One part of the home that does get used is this small detached building out back. And you can just sit down and play anything by listening to it.
Sure.
Sure, doesn't everybody? It's a recording studio. Chevy loves music, jazz specifically. He's jamming today with a group called West Trio, which includes, among others, Clint Eastwood's son, Kyle. My impression of Chevy before we sat down was that he sometimes came off in interviews as either bored or angry.
What are they doing?
He was neither.
You know, that
I think people expect him to fall down every time he walks in the room in order to prove he's funny. But Chevy doesn't have to prove much anymore. How did you get the job on Saturday Night Live?
Lorne Michaels, the producer, came out here looking for writers. And I was in line to see the great Monty Python Holy Grail. And I guess I was a cut-up in line, or I was funny in line. All I remember is Rob Reiner being in line and some other recognizable faces. Didn't really know me. I guess Lorne asked somebody, who's that guy?
You were discovered.
I was discovered.
Like Lana Turner was discovered sitting in a stool in the Schwab's drugstore. You're standing in line in the movie. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You met Jerry Ford, whom you'd made fun of all those years.
Yeah. I've met him a few times.
Do you ever think that maybe that helped him lose the election? Making him seem like such a
I suppose
goof?
I may have had a damaging effect. I suppose if 20 million people see you hitting your head and saying, no problem, doing that stuff, it begins to build a sense of what this man is, and it didn't help him any, certainly. I think that I heard back then from one of his children that it hurt his feelings, some of the things that I was doing. And that concept was beyond me. Hurt his feelings? Why, this is a public figure. This is the President of the United States. He should expect to have his feelings hurt. This is a human being. I felt later a little bit ashamed. It's awfully funny, though. I mean,
it was awfully funny. You were only on Saturday Night Live 1 year, which every time I say it surprises me because you became you know, so well known, so fast. Did you leave too early? Gilda Radner stayed, Bellucci stayed, Aykroyd stayed. You left.
Well, to begin with, they were hired as actors, as members of the Not Ready for Primetime Players, and they had 5-year contracts. I went in as a writer and asked for the option to leave after a year as a writer. Was never signed as an actor. I, at that time in my life, had never had a job for more than a year or so. I just wanted to move on and experience other things. This is beating around the bush. I think I did leave too early, and I felt it for a long time in my heart. I still miss it.
You left for a girl.
Yeah, I left. Well, it sounds awfully romantic, but predominantly because I was in love, and there was a girl out here who lived out here and wanted me to leave. At the time, that was what was pulling me.
You know, there's that whole period of your life, from the Saturday Night Live, when it was all good, to today, when it all looks very good. When there was so much mishmash. There was stuff about cocaine. There were pictures that didn't make it, they were pretty lousy. There was that whole period when it was everything was going wrong for you. Did it all kind of come at once, or is it just that I read it that way?
Well, it's complicated, and you're talking about a long period of time. Some pictures did well, some didn't. The abuse of drugs, and I never thought I abused them. I found out later that I did. Is never good. But you don't know. In my case, and in many of my colleagues' case, we came out of an era in the late 60s where I was really on a roll, when pot was acceptable, when even cocaine was considered benign. We didn't invent drugs. They were there, and we were told that if you took them, you would be wiser, you would know yourself better. The fact of the matter is, all you do know about yourself is what you're like when you're poisoned. It took a long time to know that, to learn that.
You're the only one that I've read about who went to the Betty Ford Clinic, which you did to help with your problems, and hated it.
Absolutely hated it. Well, it was just awful. Betty staggering around.
We're kidding.
I just couldn't get her. I just couldn't sober her up. No, it was. I had my problems with it. One of the problems I had with it was simple enough. I felt that there was a lot of emphasis put on, it's not your fault. Nobody came out and said to many of the people who were there with me, kids in their 20s, who had problems with freebasing and cocaine and this or that, you have a behavioral problem. It is your fault. You better get your ass straight, pardon the expression. You better think about it in those terms.
Do you have confidence?
Sometimes. I'm a multi-layered person.
Oh.
I think at the root of it, when you speak to actors and comedians like myself or any of the others that you've interviewed, you're speaking to people who need approval. Maybe to a degree much stronger than most. Maybe not, but certainly they need it on an immediate level. Mm-hmm. They need to be told they're good, that they mean that they're important.
But as I go back and read all the reviews, the critics are particularly tough on you. Tough on you when you left Saturday Night Live, tough on you in your films.
You know, I'll tell you what, I have a feeling that I've been in a slump since I left Saturday Night Live, and that I'm going to come out of it. This is a personal feeling. It may be the feeling that, quote, critics have.
Can you act?
I think I can. Doing comedy, the kind of comedy that I do, can be very difficult. It's not easy. Many actors can't do what I do. So, I mean, the first thing I would say to can you act is, no, I can't act. But I can make a lot of people laugh, and I can perform.
Very often when I do interviews and I try to think of the contrast in people's lives, and yours has had so much, I will ask, What was the worst time? What's the best? What was the worst?
In my more recent life, I would say the period after Saturday Night Live, before I met Janie. And the best? Oh. I think I'll only have retrospect on that. I must say that I have a good life now. I'm awfully happy with my kids. I'm so lucky. They're beautiful, and they are so much more well-adjusted than I was. And that's due in no small part to their mom. And I'm not just saying that because that's what you say on TV. It's really true. So maybe this is as good as it gets for now.
In a moment.
Just want to pump you up.
At age 42, Arnold Schwarzenegger is so big, it takes 2 men to parody him on Saturday Night Live.
Welcome to Mars.
You got a lot of nerve showing your face around here.
Look who's talking.
He's so popular that his next picture, Total Recall, already feels like a hit, even though it won't be in theaters till summer.
Melina, got to tell you something.
What?
I don't remember you. I don't remember us. I don't even remember me.
He's so athletic, he's been named chairman of the President's Council on Physical Fitness.
Basically what I'm trying to do is to make everyone aware of the importance of physical fitness. Everyone has to participate into some physical activity, some vigorous physical activity every day for at least 20 to 30 minutes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is smart and driven. He's living testimony to the power of a strong self-image and single-minded determination.
And for the chest.
For my lateral pectosis?
That's right, yes. And exhale on the way down.
Exhale on the way down. It's enough that I'm breathing.
It's a wonderful exercise. Give me 4 more. Come on. Yes. I tell you, when you go home, you can wear a bikini. You're ready for action.
I'm ready for a rest. He was born in the small village of Graz, Austria in 1947. His father was the police chief. His mother worked at home, raising Arnold and his older brother. These were the post-World War II years, and life was hard. At age 15, Arnold discovered bodybuilding. He realized this was his ticket to see the world. By 1970, Arnold had made it to the top, Mr. Olympia, and he was asked to come to America to write articles on the sport. Within months, he was cast in a low-budget film called Hercules in New York. But his accent was so strong that they dubbed in another actor's voice.
I've been here thousands of years. I'm tired of the same old faces.
Next came an offbeat movie with Jeff Bridges called Stay Hungry. Arnold got to play someone more like himself, and the critics were impressed.
I don't like being too comfortable. Once you get used to it, it's hard to give up. I'd rather stay hungry.
Your muscles get a really tight feeling, like your skin is going to explode any minute.
Then in 1977, Arnold starred in Pumping Iron.
It just blows up, and it feels different. It feels fantastic.
He single-handedly proved that men who had muscles could also have brains and sex appeal. Only Arnold could turn a low-budget documentary into a star vehicle. There was something charming and charismatic about him that transcended bodybuilding.
One and only Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Still, it was another 5 years before his big movie break came in Conan the Barbarian.
Conan, what is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of your women.
2 years later, he established himself as the king of action pictures by playing a merciless robot killing machine in The Terminator. Since then, he's had a string of big-budget action pictures that have made a fortune. But in 1988, he took a risk. He made a film where he had to be funny and didn't get to kill anybody. He starred with Danny DeVito in Twins, and it's been his biggest hit of all.
Take out the papers and the trash. For you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrap that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
und dort back. Da, 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 da.
On the personal front, in 1986, Arnold married television journalist Maria Shriver, daughter of Sergeant and Eunice Kennedy Shriver, and became a member of the Kennedy family. An interesting match since Arnold's a Republican.
And I wouldn't be anywhere else but right here today to support the Republican Party and George Bush for President of the United States.
His Venice, California office tells the story of his life. Posters of all the movies, good and bad, hang in the wall. The walls are glass. Arnold has little to hide. He's the embodiment of the American dream, and then some. He merchandises his name through a mail-order business that caters to the bodybuilding crowd who still remember these trophies in his days as a different kind of champion. The photos on his wall testify to personal as well as political bonds. A climate-controlled case displays his favorite cigars. The sword from Conan is here. The wedding congratulations telegram from President Reagan. And the photo of his wife Maria and their 3-month-old baby, Catherine Eunice.
I would say a half a day after the baby was born, Maria's parents flew in. And she was so happy, Eunice, and she looked at it and she says, "Oh, Maria, the face is exactly like you. Oh, look at those eyes. They're beautiful. They're just like Maria's eyes. They're beautiful. And look at the fingers, the long fingers, just like Grandpa Joe Kennedy. Look at him." And all this stuff was going on. I mean, she picked body part by body part, and it was all Kennedy and Shriver, of course, with the kid, right? So then I took a lot of pictures and put the photo album together for everyone, and including one for my mother. My mother called me that night after my nephew arrived and gave her the photo album and says, "Arnold, I couldn't believe it. I opened up this album that you sent me, and it's a total Schwarzenegger. It's unbelievable. It has your father's forehead, it has your lips, the hands, everything, the way it smiles. It's totally a Schwarzenegger. I mean, does Maria mind that this kid looks so much like a Schwarzenegger?" So this was so everyone has their own interpretation of what the kid looks like.
Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your father, because he had a great influence on you.
He was a police officer, and so he brought, with that job, a lot of discipline came into the house. And everything was quite different than what I see now here, of course, because, like, for instance, we were not allowed to speak on a dinner table or at breakfast. There was the time to eat. Everyone was sitting totally in silence, eating.
Today you have a life with everything you could want around you. But when you were a little kid, did you have flushing toilets?
We,
refrigerators,
no.
or washing machines?
No, yeah. Nothing. We had nothing. I mean, we had the first refrigerator that we got in our house was when I was 14 years old. And I remember that I got in touch with all my school buddies. And I told them, I said, "You guys got to come home." I said, "Today they delivered the refrigerator." And they all said, "What? You guys are going to get a refrigerator?" I said, "Your father must make a lot of money." And this is when I came to America. I remember that the things that people complained about, I thought were absolutely fantastic. To me, everything was just so wonderful, and I became like the most enthusiastic spokesperson for America. I was running back to Europe saying, "This place is incredible. This is absolutely fantastic. You should see the wide streets and the way people live. They all have great luxuries and all this." So to me, this was really, I think I appreciated it much more than anyone else did.
How did you get into bodybuilding in the first place?
I remember it very clearly. I walked into this weightlifting gym without a trainer, and I saw a guy in front of me squatting with around 300 pounds, which I thought it was Hercules doing his thing there. I mean, the guy looked enormous, he looked muscular, and I saw him squatting there and taking the weight down and walking over and doing a bench press and then walking somewhere else and doing 20 chin-ups. And I looked at this and I said, "I can't believe this. This is what I want to do. I want to look like this."
In Pumping Iron, you said, something you've said since, that lifting weights was like having an orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell us more.
Well, this is what I said before I met Maria. Now I changed my mind.
Tell me anyway.
What do you want to know?
What you used to say about it. You know, the next best thing to Maria is lifting weights. Why?
No, you have to understand that I am a marketing guy. I will say sometimes things that would catch people's attention.
That did.
That did, exactly. And when I made this statement about sex, I said, you know, that a good pump is better than having sex. Then people said, is that right? Wow, I better try that out. That must feel terrific.
Is that
and they
right?
all stood in line in a gym. No, it's not right, of course not. But they all stood in line at the gym, and they all went to the gym to try it out.
Were women ever turned off by all the muscles? I mean, I remember looking at some of the, you know, guys, and truthfully, Arnold, I didn't feel turned on. It was almost too much.
Well, first of all, I don't think that one trains for the world championships in any sport in order to turn on women. I think the bottom line is to win. I could care less what women thought of the whole thing. I didn't train for women.
But did it turn them on?
I never had an experience where someone walked away from me and said, this muscles turned me off. Maybe they were scared of saying it, who knows. But I mean, a lot of women, of course, when I went out with them, said, you know, I just want to make sure you understand that I don't like it just for your body. Sure. I mean, I love your brain. I say, yeah, sure, that's a good one.
When you first came to this country, your name is Schwarzenegger. Mm-hmm. You have an accent. Did anybody take you seriously when you said you wanted to act? What did they say?
Well, Barbara, every time you tell people that you want to do something big, you want to get to the top in anything, they will say you're crazy, you can never do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's the very thing that I need to get inspired and to get hungry. I really get hungry when people say you can't do it.
Yeah.
That's when I really get the drive. I felt, well, if this is the case, then maybe that I can use all those things and become unique. And maybe it's better to be unique because people then will remember you much more rather than being one of millions out there. And then later on, people came to me and said exactly the opposite. When I remember after the Conan movies and when I did Commando and Terminator, people came to me and said, you know, this Terminator movie would have never worked if you wouldn't have had that accent because you sounded like a robot. The Conan movies never would have worked if you wouldn't have had an accent or the body. And then the name Schwarzenegger, I mean, after people remember the name, they would never be able to forget it. What an asset. How strong. And so it all turned around.
Let's talk about Maria. I've known Maria since she was a very little girl, as you know. But when you met Maria and people heard you were going to get married, again, there was this, here is this girl from an intellectual family, from the royal family, practically, of America, marrying Arnold Schwarzenegger, bodybuilder. What do they have in common? So, you tell us.
I think it was just love. I remember very clearly when I met her the first night, and I saw her dancing out on the dance floor, which was at the Robert F. Kennedy tennis tournament. The night before, they always have a dance. I said, this girl is so much fun, and she's funny, and she's witty, and she's smart, and all this stuff, and she has this energy in her eyes, she really wants to live life, you know, that it came out of her face. And I just enjoyed that so much, and I wanted to get together with her then more and more, and it became like a regular kind of relationship.
Here is the #1 Democratic family in the country. You are not only a Republican, but you campaigned for George Bush. What if it were George Bush versus Ted Kennedy?
Then it maybe would be a different ballgame, because then it's family involved, and then maybe we'll stay out of that.
Arnold, what makes one guy a champion, one person a champion, and the other one not?
It's drive. It's the will. There's certain people that grow up with a tremendous hunger, and it's usually kids that have struggled when they were kids. When you grow up comfortably, and in comfort and in peace and happiness and all those things, that will produce a very balanced person and a good person. But it would not create the will and the determination and the hunger that you need to be the best in the world.
Do you have a philosophy by which you live?
Staying hungry. That's it.